In the dark gallery of an old chapel, a group of people point their phones at the empty pews. Some claim to see a figure moving between the rows. Later, two different cameras capture something unusual behind one of the researchers. In one photo, the silhouette of a man is visible. In the other, a small figure appears to be sitting next to him. A few months later, the museum owner enters the chapel alone to lock the doors. When he returned, his wife claimed that his gait, face, and demeanor had completely changed. He himself did not clearly remember what had happened inside. And in another part of the building, visitors begin to independently report voices, laughter, and footsteps under a closed door with no one behind it. All of these stories come from the same place, an old chapel and school hall in Wales that has been turned into a museum of the paranormal and spiritual. But what really goes on in this building? Do witnesses encounter unexplained phenomena, or do anticipation, darkness, and suggestion create experiences that seem entirely real? In this documentary, we will examine the most unusual cases associated with the museum, separate witness statements from verifiable facts, and look for possible explanations. And how would you react if, in a photo taken in an empty room, you saw a figure that wasn't there at the time of the photo shoot? The building where these events take place was not originally created as a museum of the unexplained. It includes an old chapel and school hall used by the local community for generations. According to the owners, the place has a long religious history. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, services were held in the chapel, and later stories of divine healings, angelic appearances, and other unusual experiences emerged. Today, these stories cannot be easily proven. Some of them were passed down orally, while others are preserved in local knowledge and memories. It is this combination of religious past, old architecture, and accumulated stories that makes the building attractive to people who research the paranormal. Since its acquisition, it has become home to a collection of objects said to be associated with paranormal events. These include religious relics, Victorian artifacts, objects used in rituals, and objects whose previous owners have reported unexplained experiences. It is important to emphasize that the claim that an object is inhabited or carries some kind of presence cannot be confirmed solely by the history that accompanies it. For skeptics, such collections create a strong sense of anticipation, and when one already knows that one is among dark and supposedly active objects, every sound or shadow can take on greater significance. For believers, however, objects can retain traces of the people, emotions, or rituals they were associated with. It is between these two extremes that almost all investigations in the museum unfold. One of the most talked about events occurred during a small private investigation in February. It involved about 15 people who were already familiar with the building and had attended previous events. This is an important detail. According to the organizers, the group is relaxed and the participants know each other. They believe that such an atmosphere reduces tension and makes it easier to observe unusual phenomena. The investigation takes place in the chapel, which has a gallery and seats approximately 400 people. In the dark space, the small group is spread out between the upper and lower levels. The experiment tonight is about sound frequencies. The organizers are playing different tones through the chapel's sound system and observing whether new sounds, movements, or other supposed phenomena appear when they are changed. Some of the tones used are popular as solfège or sacred frequencies. They are often attributed with spiritual and healing properties. However, there is no scientific evidence that specific frequencies can cause paranormal phenomena. Yet, during the experiment, several participants began to report seeing a figure in the dim light. According to the accounts, it appeared near one of the researchers, sitting next to him, or moving between the benches behind him. Initially, this can be explained by limited visibility. In a dimly lit room, the human brain is constantly trying to recognize shapes. Shadows, objects, and reflections can easily be perceived as faces or human bodies. This phenomenon is known as pareidolia, but the participants didn't just limit themselves to verbal descriptions. A few people started taking pictures with their phones. Footsteps, creaking wood, and sounds reminiscent of movement on benches are heard during the session. The owners claim to know the building well and can distinguish the usual noises of pipes, wind, and old windows from the sounds they hear tonight. However, this remains their discretion. Old buildings often produce unusual noises due to temperature changes, wooden structures, air currents, and movement in pipes. In the dark and with intense concentration on a possible activity, such sounds can seem much closer and more significant. The real argument begins during the break, when the participants look at the photos taken. Two images are attracting the most attention. They were taken with different phones, from different locations in the chapel. In the first photo, one of the researchers is standing next to the pew. Behind him, a blurred form is discernible, which, according to those present, resembles a large man with broad shoulders, facial hair, and clothing with a high and thick collar. The owners state that there is no mirror, glass surface, or nearby window in this part of the gallery that would clearly explain the image as a reflection. This does not necessarily mean that the photograph shows a human figure. In low light, phones use longer exposure times, digital sharpening, and automatic processing. Movement of a person, light, or the camera can create double contours and shapes that look like faces. The second photo is even more unusual. It shows the researcher sitting on a bench with a smaller, dark shape next to him. Some see it as the head and body of a child. Others believe it could be an object, a shadow, or a visual defect. Here the main question arises. If the photos are not manipulated, what exactly is in the frame? A real figure, a reflection, movement during the exposure, or just a random combination of light and shadow? The fact that the images were taken by two different people makes them more interesting. But without the original files, technical data, exact camera positions, and a reconstruction under the same lighting, no definitive conclusion can be made. For the participants, however, the photos match what some of them claim they saw before they even looked at them, making the case one of the most talked about stories at the museum. But the supposed figures in the chapel aren't the most frightening event associated with the building. The next case involves not a photograph, but a sudden change in the behavior of a man who knows the place better than almost anyone else. After the photos were posted, visitors' attention was drawn to another series of events. This time it wasn't about the images, but rather unusual behavior that witnesses said took place over the course of just a few minutes. The story begins after the conclusion of an evening tour. Among the visitors is a group of people who show an unusually strong interest in objects associated with occult rituals and various magical practices. According to the staff, the conversations gradually turn to topics such as control over spiritual entities, rituals to gain power, and the use of supposedly dangerous objects. This in itself proves absolutely nothing. Interest in such topics does not mean that unexplained events will follow, but it was after this tour that something happened that remains one of the most discussed stories in the museum to this day. After the last visitors leave, one of the owners enters the chapel alone to lock the building. He returns a few minutes later, but his wife immediately notices a change. According to her, his gait is different. His face seems tense and his behavior is unusually rude and aggressive. She even claims that for a moment she feels as if she is looking at another face superimposed on her own. It is understandable that such a story would arouse skepticism. It is extremely difficult to independently verify such an experience. There is no video recording, no medical data to confirm what exactly happened at that moment. When she stops him and insists on looking at her, according to the story, his expression gradually changes, and after a few seconds he looks completely confused. Even more interesting is what he himself says. The last clear memory he has is of entering the dark chapel. Then he remembers noticing movement between the pews. The next few minutes seem to be missing from his memory. The next thing he remembers is his wife's face in front of him. What could explain such an experience? From a psychological perspective, severe fatigue, accumulated stress, prolonged work, and suggestion can lead to temporary disorientation or a change in behavior. The owners themselves admit that at this time they work almost without a break, preparing the museum, organizing events, and often ending the day late at night. On the other hand, people who accept the possibility of paranormal phenomena see something completely different in this case. According to them, the experience may represent a short-term effect of an unknown phenomenon related to the building or the objects stored within it. None of these versions can be proven definitively, but this is not the last case to attract attention. Over time, stories begin to accumulate about a seemingly completely ordinary place, the women's restroom of the museum. At first, individual visitors keep their experiences to themselves. Some worry that no one will believe them. Others simply don't want to seem superstitious. It was only when several women independently began telling similar stories that the staff took serious notice. One day, shortly before the museum opened, one of the owners came out of the disabled toilet and heard a noise behind the door of the women's toilet. A pair of shoes is clearly visible under the lower slit. Convinced that there is a person inside, she walks away for a moment, then decides to look from another angle. When she returns, the shoes are gone. Shortly after, her husband came out of the men's room, not the women's room. He also reported hearing voices or movement from the next room. After this incident, other evidence began to emerge. Some visitors say they hear quiet laughter behind closed doors. Others claim they are talking to someone in the next booth, and after they leave, they find that no one is there. A paranormal investigator who attended an event at the museum also stated that he heard female laughter coming from the ladies' room, even though there were no visitors inside. An interesting detail is the observation of the staff that during the evening events, many women prefer not to enter one of the booths alone. This does not prove the existence of an unexplained phenomenon, but it shows how certain stories can gradually shape the behavior of visitors. Could there be a completely natural explanation for all this? The acoustics in old buildings are often unusual. Sounds can travel through walls, pipes, and cavities in a way that makes it difficult to pinpoint their source. Furthermore, the expectation that something unusual will happen can significantly influence the way we perceive our environment. On the other hand, when multiple people describe similar experiences, interest in the case naturally increases. That is why this museum continues to be visited by both skeptics and people convinced that something inexplicable is really happening there. Does the old chapel hide phenomena that science still cannot explain? Or can all of these cases be explained by a combination of suggestion, human psychology, the peculiarities of the old building, and the way our brain perceives the unknown? At present, there is no evidence that definitively confirms the paranormal origin of the described events. There are photographs, eyewitness accounts, personal experiences, and many questions, but a definitive answer is still missing. That's what makes cases like this so intriguing. They remind us of how much we still don't fully understand and how important it is to approach any unusual story with curiosity, critical thinking, and respect for the facts. What do you think? If you found yourself in a place like this and experienced something inexplicable, would you look for a rational explanation, or would you accept that you had witnessed a true paranormal phenomenon? Write your opinion in the comments. I will be interested to read what you think about this case. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If you found the video interesting, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell so you don't miss the next documentary stories about the most mysterious and unexplained cases in the world. If you want to watch more such documentary stories, tap on the photos that will appear at the top of the screen.